I'm Sal Greco. You're watching and listening to the Sal Greco Show. On this edition of the Sal Greco Show, we have famed New York City attorney Artie Aidala. Allegedly, he's being propositioned to be the next head of the Eastern District of New York as the head U.S. attorney. I don't know about that one, Artie. We also have a major incident that occurred in Midtown Manhattan. Right now, there's a massive manhunt on the loose for a perp who committed a homicide. And 2 hours after that, before the police department could even give any details to the public, Eric Adams posted how he touts crime being down. Talk about impeccable timing from somebody who's just got a fragile ego, man. That's just the bottom line with that guy. Also, later on in the show, we're going to play my full segment on the Stone Zone with Roger Stone. So with that being said, let's roll the intro and let's get this show started. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Sal Greco Show. Before we get started, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button, share this with your friends, your family, like-minded people. Hit the notification button on Rumble, hit the like button, hit the Rumble button, hit the follow button. And if you're listening on any major podcast streaming platform, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. It's occurred to me that the incoming border czar is a little friendly with somebody in the New York City Police Department. That would be Chief of Patrol John Chell. Now, John Chell is a infamous character. As you know, he has ruffled feathers and violated numerous rules in the New York City Police Department and the New York City Charter. He's gone to task against current politicians. You may like that. Some don't like that. I personally feel that if you are a police officer, you just stick to your job. That's policing. You don't go on to media and start fighting with the media and fighting with other politicians, or as John Chell likes to state, the quote, stakeholders, end quote. So I don't understand this move. Tom Homan, I guess, knows John Chell. So let me put this up on the screen. So here's my post from X. Rumor: Tom Homan may be looking to pawn his friend NYPD Chief of Patrol John Chell for a role in Homeland Security. John Chell and other officials are currently in a sexual misconduct lawsuit, which he allegedly smeared the victim as New York City taxpayers illegally fund his legal defense. Here is the headline from the Daily News, and there is the lawsuit. There is a plethora of defendants. Mayor Eric Adams, the former police commissioner DeMarche, Keyshawn Sewell, Edward Caban, the current chief of department Jeffrey Madry, this community affairs coordinator civilian Brian Adams, who's in other sexual misconduct lawsuits, and there's Inspector Craig Edelman, of course, Deputy Commissioner of Operations Kaz Daughtry, Deputy Commissioner now of Public Safety Chauncey Parker, other NYPD members, and of course, the illustrious NYPD Chief of Patrol John Chell. I'm a big fan of Tom Homan. I believe he is the one and only person that could be the border czar, but I would not agree with bringing in John Chell to Homeland Security. John Chell is one of numerous defendants who are, by the way, illegally being represented by the New York City Corporation Council, which is the New York City taxpayers are funding, because, of course, you cannot represent a city employee in regards to a sexual misconduct lawsuit, because under General Municipal Law 50K2, you only can represent somebody who does an action in their scope of their duties. sexual misconduct, smearing victims, sexual harassment, all of that stuff does not fall under the scope of one's duties as a city employee. City council has mentioned this, but never stepped in. So, this is not somebody who, in a value judgment, should be working for the federal government. He's mired in controversy in the New York City Police Department. He's been involved in his own shady actions in the past when he basically killed somebody on the job. And that investigation, somehow he didn't get terminated for it, even though there were questionable actions taken by Mr. Chell. And now what? We're going to reward him for smearing a sexual misconduct victim. And I guess that's the way of the world in the New York City Police Department. You just keep rewarding bad behavior. And that's what would be going on here. Personally, we don't know where John Chell's political leanings are. One day he sounds like he's a conservative. Then he goes back to agreeing with Eric Adams and all his progressive ways and his ever-changing policy shifts. And then he calls everybody a stakeholder. I don't know where this road leads, but John Chell is not qualified to work for Homeland Security. He comes with a lot of baggage. They are also in this lawsuit trying to dismiss it, and it keeps getting denied. John Chell will be testifying at some point in that trial, which will be a mess for the city. Numerous big-name defendants. I don't predict that will go well for the NYPD or Eric Adams. So John Chell is not qualified, and if he is, someone should ask what happened in that sexual misconduct lawsuit. And in all honesty, someone needs to question the chief of patrol of the New York City Police Department, because first you hear that he wants to be employed by Newsmax. Now he wants to be working for Homeland Security. So sounds like John Chell doesn't have the heart to be in the NYPD anymore. Therefore, he should just retire. I mean, clearly there's a problem there. So moving along, we had an incident in Midtown Manhattan where there's a homicide that occurs. It's awful. So let me read this article and show you what exactly occurred the other day in Midtown Manhattan. New images released of suspect in United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson killing without a mask as manhunt shifts to Upper West Side. This is in the Daily News. It's by Thomas Tracy and Julian Roberts Gramella.
The NYPD on Thursday released new images of the face of the gunman wanted for killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson as the manhunt led police to an Upper West Side hostel, and Port Authority police believe the suspect came to Manhattan on a bus from Atlanta nearly 2 weeks ago, a source close to the case told the Daily News. The images, taken at the HI New York City hostel on Amsterdam Avenue near West 104th Street, show the suspect without a mask and smiling at someone as he stands by the front desk. The surveillance images were taken before Thompson was gunned down outside a Hilton hotel in Midtown, police sources said. Detectives swarmed the hostel at about 4 p.m. Wednesday after tracking the gunman to the location. Meanwhile, Port Authority police helping NYPD investigators track the movements of the shooter have determined the suspect came into the city on a Greyhound bus through the Port Authority bus terminal in Midtown, a source told the news Thursday night. He arrived the evening of November 24th from Atlanta, the source said, adding that there is footage of him walking through the 8th Avenue bus terminal. The gunman was staying in a fourth-floor room of the hostel before the shooting, according to hostel residents. It was not immediately disclosed how long he had stayed in the low-priced room before the shooting occurred. Mateus Taranto, who was visiting the U.S. from Brazil and was staying in a room next to the suspect, realized something was off when all the police arrived and began running forensic tests in one of the bathrooms used by floor tenants. I was going to brush my teeth, and there was a detective, and he was like, "No, you can't go to this bathroom," Taranto, 24, recalled. I asked him why, if something happened, and he was like, "No, nothing. Nothing major happened right now. You don't have to worry." He just shoved it off, Taranto said about the detective. He didn't realize until Thursday that they were looking for the man who killed Thompson. The room he had been staying in was locked Thursday, Taranto said. I'm used to violence because I'm from Rio de Janeiro, said Taranto, a sports reporter who arrived from Brazil on Thanksgiving to catch some local basketball and football games. There's a lot there, but, not this kind. Not professional assassin stuff. So yeah, it was pretty shocking. The NYPD put out images of the suspect Thursday in the hope someone recognizes him. The full investigative efforts of the NYPD are continuing, and we are asking for the public's help, the NYPD said on X as they released the new images. Hostel tenant Camilla DeHere, who was visiting New York from Kingston, Ontario, said she and a friend returned to the hostel about 1 a.m. Thursday morning only to learn that one of their fellow tenants was a killer. Wednesday evening was the first night that we stayed, so it was quite eventful, she told the Daily News. We saw a very, very drunk guy in our hostel downstairs. He said he saw the shooter. We just didn't really take him serious, because we thought, you have drunk a lot. The witness recognized the shooter from the surveillance pics, DeHere, 26, said. I know it's him, the drunk man kept screaming, she recalled. I saw him, and it was my neighbor. I think we also just thought it can't be so we just ignored it, DeHere said, now realizing their drunk neighbor was right. Detectives have been visiting hostels in the area after they tracked the suspect to the area, police sources said. The suspect killed Thompson, 50, as he walked to a Hilton hotel on West 54th Street and 6th Avenue where he was about to address colleagues and company investors at a conference, police said. Harrowing surveillance footage shows the man shoot Thompson in the back, then coolly clear a jam in his pistol, before firing at least 3 more times. He fled the scene on a bicycle and disappeared in Central Park, but cops picked up his trail late Wednesday night on the Upper West Side. Police are offering $10,000 reward for any information leading to the gunman's capture. Anyone with information regarding his whereabouts is urged to call NYPD Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS. All calls will be kept confidential.
This is a brutal incident that occurred in New York City. This reminds me of the 80s, where we had something that occurred just like this in 1985 at Spark Steakhouse with the rub out of the then Gambino mob boss, Paul Castellano. But that occurred in the evening, and this was in the morning. It's just, this is terrible. And I trust the New York City Police Department will not only find this person, my sources tell me they already know who it is. Of course, they're holding this one close to the chest, and I know they will get their man. This animal must be brought to justice. So, while this is going on, though, the morning of, I'm going to show you this post because Eric Adams chimes in the middle of all of this. 2 hours after a homicide is caught on film in Midtown Manhattan, New York City Mayor Eric Adams touted how crime is down in New York City. This man is not a conservative or, quote, woke, end quote. Eric's obsessed with perception, controlling narratives, and being criticized. Violent crime is up from 2023 to 2024. So here is the post that Eric Adams posted about crime being down 2 hours after a major incident in Midtown Manhattan, which was a homicide. And here are the real numbers in regards to violent major felonies. Unbelievable. I find it quite disturbing that the mayor of New York City, 2 hours after this incident, where everybody is scared And the perception is that crime is up. It's actually a reality, as you just saw on the screen for the true crime statistics. And this megalomaniac puts that crime is down. So he's trying to do what Marlon Bethel correctly states all the time: perception management. And you know why? Because the NYPD doesn't have a press conference in regards to this incident until 11:30 a.m. That's 5 hours after the incident. Of course, they have to gather their facts. But in between, the mayor, instead of keeping his mouth shut and letting the police department do their job or tell the public exactly what's going on and try to quell any discernment in the street, Eric Adams decides to try to get in front of the narrative and manage the perception of what's going on. This man is not fit for office. Let's just call it what it is. The first thing Eric Adams should have done, if he's going to chime in before the police department releases any details or facts of the case, is give his condolences and say that his police department is on it. That's all I'm going to say about that. And then we have his buddy, Artie Aidala, this attorney. Artie Aidala is also a man that's connected to many, we'll call them unsavory characters, along with Eric Adams. So let me read this and show you the article on screen. Trump considering politically connected New York City lawyer Arthur Aidala for Brooklyn U.S. Attorney. This is from Chris Sommerfeld and Molly Crane Newman of the New York Daily News.
Arthur Aidala, politically connected lawyer with a roster of high-profile clients that includes Rudy Giuliani and a top advisor to Mayor Adams, is under consideration by President-elect Donald Trump's transition team to become the next Brooklyn U.S. Attorney, the Daily News has learned. According to 3 sources familiar with the matter, members of the federal judiciary and others have in recent private conversations with Trump's team floated Aidala's name for the prominent prosecutor post, currently occupied by Breon Peace, who was tapped for it by President Biden in 2021. Trump considered Aidala for the Brooklyn U.S. Attorney job at the outset of his first term in the White House, but ultimately nominated Richard Donahue. It wasn't immediately clear who Trump was considering for Brooklyn U.S. Attorney, besides Aidala. Trump's transition team didn't immediately return a request for comment Wednesday, and a Peace spokesman declined to comment. A Brooklyn native with prosecutorial experience in the borough state courts, Aidala, 57, has defended several high-profile clients in recent years, including disgraced film producer Harvey Weinstein. He told the news on Wednesday it would be an honor to become Brooklyn U.S. Attorney. If I was called upon to serve the community that I grew up in and lived in that capacity, I would consider it the honor of a lifetime, said Aidala, whose law firm has offices in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Southampton. As Aidala angles to become Brooklyn's next top federal prosecutor, several individuals connected to Adams are ensnared in investigations conducted by Peace's office. In February, federal investigators raided the Bronx homes of Winnie Greco, a senior advisor to Adams, as part of a probe led by Peace that's at least in part reportedly scrutinizing fundraising for the mayor's 2021 campaign. Greco, who hasn't been charged with wrongdoing, resigned from her City Hall job in October after Adams was criminally indicted in a separate federal case brought by the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office. Aidala also counts Ingrid Lewis-Martin, Adams' chief advisor, as a friend and client. Aidala is representing Lewis-Martin in connection with a corruption investigation by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office that resulted in her phone being seized and her home raided in September. To boot, Aidala is an Adams campaign donor and close friend of Frank Carone, Adams' ex-chief of staff and political confidant. Peace's office recently served a subpoena on the Diocese of Brooklyn seeking records about financial dealings between Carone and Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello, a Brooklyn priest. Aidala is representing Gigantiello in that matter and has said his client isn't a target of that investigation. Aidala has represented Giuliani in legal proceedings, too, and is personally acquainted with both the former mayor and Adams, saying in an October 2022 radio appearance, "I'm friendly with Mayor Giuliani, and I'm friendly with Mayor Adams." Aidala declined to comment on conversations he has had about the potential U.S. attorney nomination or say whether he'd recuse himself from cases involving current or former Adams administration officials. The U.S. Senate would need to confirm Aidala should he ultimately be nominated, amid word that he's under consideration for the job. Aidala got a ringing public endorsement from a prominent lawyer with ties to Trump. "He's one of the best lawyers in the city," said Alan Dershowitz, the former Harvard University professor who defended Trump during his first U.S. Senate impeachment trial in 2020. "He's a quintessential Brooklyn New Yorker. If you had to describe the perfect U.S. attorney candidate, it'd be Arthur Aidala."
So now that I just read you this article and showed you the article, now I'm going to show you what my good buddy Roger Stone said about all of this. Here's what Roger said. "Conceivably, the worst idea I've ever heard. The chances of U.S. Senate confirmation would be 0. Roger further comments on this. "His current representation of an individual under investigation by that office would be an egregious conflict of interest. In fact, there is no attorney-client privilege as the crime/fraud exception should be used to charge him today. No chance he will be selected and no chance that he could be confirmed by the U.S. Senate if he was selected. I have an exhaustive bar complaint already drafted and will file it in a heartbeat." Another friend of mine, Latina Brown, who's a community advocate in the Bronx, she also chimed in by saying, "I agree with you, Roger. Whoever is pushing that BS out there is misleading the media and the public. That lawyer is representing a handful of people from the mayor's circle. Definitely a conflict." I not only agree with my friend Roger Stone, I agree with my friend Latina Brown. This appointed position will never go to Artie Aidala. He will never pass the smell test. He wouldn't pass the smell test as an underling at the Justice Department. This reeks and stinks of corruption. Artie Aidala, as the head of the EDNY, would just basically make sure these cases go in the incinerator. So that's just never going to happen. And there will be a bar complaint filed by Roger if he does somehow make it to some kind of appointment in the Eastern District of New York. That's a disgrace. Stick to your practice, Artie, really. All these planted BS stories. My God. This guy, Artie Aidala, by the way, he's not a fan of Donald Trump, just to let you know. He's said quite the disparaging remarks about him. And they're public. You could check him out on all the shows he does in his own show. And he's had quite the mouthful to say about President Trump. So now we're going to move on to the final thing, which is my interview on the Stone Zone with Roger Stone. So here it is.
We have two focuses today. The first one is on New York City Mayor Eric Adams. You remember Adams. He is the liberal Democrat who ran for mayor of New York City as an outspoken advocate of that city being a sanctuary city. He went so far as to say that illegals were welcome in New York City. Now he's whistling a very different tune. The only opposition he ever voiced to open borders and the policy of Joe Biden, well, that was none whatsoever. His real issue was the fact that the federal government would not write him multi-million-dollar checks to deal with the problem that they had created. Indeed, the invasion of illegals into stable New York neighborhoods where they have been housed in migrant shelters has caused an extraordinary crime problem. We actually reported here on the Stone Zone about a decision to put a migrant shelter next to a Catholic girls' school in Staten Island. But now that Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury and faces very serious charges, he seems to be whispering a very different tune. Joining us to break this down is my friend Sal Greco. Sal is a 14-year veteran of New York City Police Department with an unblemished record of service to the people of New York, sometimes assigned to some of the most dangerous precincts in New York City for the graveyard shift. As many who follow the Stone Zone know, Officer Greco was terminated by the city of New York simply because he is a friend of mine. They terminated him because they used a city regulation by the police department that says one cannot associate with individuals who in the past may have or in the future may involve themselves in criminal activity. You just described the entire top brass of the New York City Police Department, every one of whom has broken that rule. But you see, they're not Sal Greco. Joining us now, the host of the Sal Greco Show and my good friend, Officer Salvatore Greco.
Thank you, Roger. Thanks for the great introduction.
Well, Sal, nobody knows more about this than you do. Since the time that they unjustly, and I would argue illegally, terminated you, you have a federal lawsuit pending against the city of New York. The perps have moved 3 times to have it dismissed. You're very fortunate you've gotten an honest, unbiased judge who has refused to dismiss that suit. Now the city is stalling in their depositions. I understand they turned over material to you in discovery, which actually excludes documents that they referred to during your administrative trial. Somebody's going to get disbarred here, and others are going to pay a high price, but it's not really what we're here to talk about today. For some reason, many Trump supporters seem to buy into this narrative that Eric Adams was only targeted for prosecution because he's such an outspoken critic of Joe Biden's open borders policy. As I said in the opening, that's nonsense. He was a full-throated advocate of New York City being a sanctuary city. His only criticism of the Biden administration was that they wouldn't write him a multi-million-dollar check to deal with the problems. So now, however, he's in deep trouble. Now, some people, I was watching, I guess it was Greg Gutfield's show on Fox, and I saw one of the commentators say that, well, the charges of Eric Adams are really minor. I mean, he had a coach seat on Turkish Airlines and they bumped it up to first class. Somewhat more serious than that, is it not, Sal?
It's a lot more serious. And his whole, we'll say the whole mantra of how he started his mayoralship is more important here. So we'll go back. So first of all, he campaigned stating that New York City would remain a sanctuary city. Eric Adams himself is for illegals voting in the local elections. He's never changed his position, Roger. He's never said, oh, I don't believe. That's what he believes. He then, in October of 2023, at a press conference, stated that the official policy for New York City is that the borders are to remain open. The only reason...
Let's show that video, just because we like to document everything we say here on the Stone Zone. Let's roll that quick video.
We believe the borders should remain open. That's the official position of the city.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not me. I know people like to say, well, Sal, you have an axe to grind. That might be so, but doesn't make it that I'm lying about anything either. It's not saying that I'm lying here. So when we go, you just saw that he has his open border policy. He also spent, the government gave him $6.4 billion, or he said that he spent, and the government gave him $100 million, I believe. But we don't even know how he requisitioned this, because as you know, there are problems with the migrant shelter. So one of the issues also with the migrant shelter here, Roger, is that his pal, Tim Pearson, was in charge of the migrant shelter contracts, like you stated about the shelter that was in Staten Island. I believe the Roosevelt Hotel is another migrant shelter contract that's coming under fire. And Tim Pearson's actually being federally investigated, not only for that, for many other infractions, we'll say. So Eric, some of this is very self-inflicted. He's a highly conflicted individual who surrounds himself with highly corruptible people. So when he says he wants the money, when he's saying the government won't give me money, as you correctly stated, he's talking about these migrant shelter contracts because they were making money off of that. That's why he is now doing press conferences by himself, because everybody got subpoenaed. Everybody's in a grand jury. Now, the actual indictment, as you stated, what he's actually being indicted for, the most important thing is he received $10 million in public matching funds through Turkish, that is foreign, straw donors via the 8-to-1 public matching fund program New York City has. That's $10 million of New York City taxpayer money. That's not $10 million of his own money. So essentially, he's a crook, just like Bob Menendez before him that was prosecuted and convicted in New York City. There's nothing political about this, Roger. Their investigation started in 2021. That was prior to him becoming mayor or even winning his primary. He was under investigation in early 2021. That's when it started. So why is this political? What's this got to do with the migrant crisis or whatever you want to call this, the undocumented situation that they have there in New York City?
I mean, here's a video of him making very clear that he believes New York State or New York City is a right to shelter state, meaning that the illegals that he now seems to be so hot to expel, well, he said they had a right to be there. Let's roll it.
As the mayor of the city of New York, I don't, weigh into immigration issues, border issues. I have to provide services for families that are here, and that's what we're going to do. And that's what our responsibility as a city. I'm proud that this is a right to shelter state, and we're going to continue to do that.
I think that proves your point, Sal. But now suddenly he's changed his tune. He showed up at the UFC fight when Donald Trump was in New York City recently to try to shake the president's hand. It looked to me like the president shook his hand quickly and kind of blew him off. But there are Republicans who seem to be out repeating this false narrative that, oh, no, he was only targeted because he's a critic of Biden's open borders policy. I happen to know there's a grand jury investigation now looking at whether Eric Adams paid certain New York City-based Republicans to parrot that line and where those monies came from. The mayor is now suddenly, he's gung-ho for cooperating with immigration czar Tom Homan. He actually said that he looks forward to meeting with Homan, and suddenly Eric Adams doesn't care about being canceled. Let's take a look at that.
Those who are here committing crimes, robberies, shooting at police officers, raping innocent people, have been a harm to our country. I want to sit down and hear the plan on how we're going to address them. Those are the people I am talking about, and I would love to sit down with the border czar and hear his thoughts on how we're going to address those who are harming our citizens.
You're open to that?
Open to
hearing what their plan is to deport some of these folks, and you think the city, in some circumstances, should cooperate with ICE.
Let me. You know what's interesting? And I was talking to the team the other day. I want you to all go back and Google Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Google what they said about those who commit crimes in our city and what they said in our country. They said those who commit crimes need to get out right away. That was their position. So this is not a new position, because in the state in the era of cancel culture, no one's afraid to be honest about the truth. Well, cancel me because I'm going to protect the people of the city. And if you come into this country, in this city, and think you're going to harm innocent New Yorkers and innocent migrants and asylum seekers, this is not the mayor you want to be in the city under.
By the way, I want to compliment Mayor Adams on his double-breasted waistcoat. That's very rare. He is, without any question, the best-dressed mayor since Jimmy Walker, the shortest mayor since Abe Beame, the most incompetent mayor since Bill de Blasio, and the most corrupt mayor since William O'Dwyer. It's extraordinary to see this metamorphosis going on, because what he's doing here, folks, is he's trawling for a pardon from President Donald Trump. He's also, interestingly enough, and this has to be quite politically incorrect, he's weighed in on the issue of Daniel Perry, who is the man who actually protected a woman from being assaulted by a thug on a subway and now is facing serious charges in the New York courts. First of all, Sal, well, we've got a quick video of that. Let's roll it, and then I'd like to hear your analysis of the Perry case.
You should look at that on a multi-faceted approach of everything that's wrong with the system that we're facing. One, look at the photo that they used to show the victims. It seemed like it was a young, innocent child who was brutally murdered, and it gave that impression. When you looked at the photo that was being used, it wanted to set up in the minds of people that we were dealing with a young, innocent child that, just a Michael Jackson intimidator that, was just brutally assaulted. Then you look at the complete failure of our mental health system, a complete failure from the days of closing psychiatric wards and having those who needed help just turned over into the street without giving any safety net to accept them. Parents reach out to me all the time and say, I'm watching my child go down, or my loved one, my family member going down this serious decline. What do we do? A system where you brought people into hospitals, gave them medicine for one day, and sent them back. The young man in this case was going within our system, throughout the revolving door of our system. Now we're on the subway where we're hearing someone talking about hurting people, killing people. You have someone on that subway who was responding, doing what we should have done as a city and a state of having a mental health facility. Those passengers were afraid. I'm hoping that the jury will hear all the facts. Based on all the facts that's laid out, a jury of his peers would make the right decision. And I don't want to prejudge that. I'm just looking at all the facts that are involved here and what we did to get to where we are and what we're seeing. Because that could have easily been a case where you saw 3 innocent people murdered on our street 2 weeks ago.
All right, Sal, the Daniel Perry case, this couldn't seem more obvious to me, but turns out that the woman who's prosecuting this case in the past has been far more liberal in her recommendations, sentencing recommendations for people who committed violent crimes because of their backgrounds of a lack of privilege or race. I thought we had a colorblind criminal justice system. Tell us about this case, if you will, because you were a police officer for almost 15 years.
So the case is actually Daniel Penny, who was a Marine. He was on the train and saw this Jordan Neely, who was, I guess, causing a disturbance. Obviously, as you know, and Eric himself loves to tout how crime is down, but the transit crime was actually very high. The numbers from 2023 to 2024 are actually higher. That's another thing we could discuss with the crime statistics, but that has a major factor in this case. So the police officers are very, we'll say, scarce around transit, especially at this time. So Jordan Neely was on the train giving a disturbance, bothering people. He got mental issues, but he's also been arrested numerous times. So Daniel Penny took it upon himself to try to quell the situation. The guy was irate. He was, I think he tried to assault somebody on the train. So he put him in what they're calling a chokehold. That's also a move to detain someone. And unfortunately, Jordan Neely perished right after this, and they try to charge Daniel Penny with the murder. So he's been in court, and they charge him with murder, and I think it's really self-defense, and he didn't mean to murder the guy. So now we're seeing the trial, and actually this morning, Jordan Neely's father hit Daniel Penny with the civil rights lawsuit, for damages. because his son was killed. So he just got hit with that, as his verdict may come down today or might come this week. We don't know when they're going to announce the verdict. But I like to go back to the video you pointed with Eric Adams. When this situation first happened, Roger, there's a video of it. Eric Adams is saying how Jordan Neely, who is the person that perished here, he said that my son's name is Jordan. And he repeated that. And he goes, another one of our own was taken today. What does he mean by that, Roger? And I'll tell you what it means. It goes back to his ways of the Al Sharpton / Louis Farrakhan class. He's making it about race, just like when Eric called, Caucasian police officers crackers. He said that he, quote, I kicked some cracker's ass, end quote. That's what he says. So when Eric wants, he plays to the low information base. Then he goes back. Now he's trying to act like he's MAGA. This guy is a snake. He's just shedding his snake skin right in front of everyone's eyes. And hopefully the jury will say that Daniel Penny is found not guilty. That should be the verdict here. That was self-defense. It's just very unfortunate that the whole situation happened that day. And that is what I'm hoping for, is a not guilty verdict.
Oh, we should all be praying for that. Sal, we do want to talk about your own case only because it demonstrates that Eric Adams and many others in the New York City Police Department brass have been held to a very different standard than you have. There is a regulation that says that police officers cannot associate with those who in the past or in the future may engage in criminal activity. So they terminated you because you're a friend of mine. Okay, fine. But Eric Adams was a bodyguard for Mike Tyson, a convicted felon. He was brought up on the same administrative charge. I think they docked him, I believe it was 5 days of his vacation. In your case, you lost your job, you lost your pension, and they refused to give you a good conduct letter, which means if you chose to work as a law enforcement officer in a different jurisdiction, say in Florida where you now live, you wouldn't be able to be hired. That's just one example. What about when Cardi B, the convicted gang member with a long criminal rap sheet, was invited to speak at the New York City Police Academy? I would argue that every single officer who came in contact with her is in violation of that same regulation under which they terminated you, but none of them have been fired. None of them have even been brought up on administrative charges. This is what we call the two-tiered justice system. I do also want to focus specifically on the officer who conducted the investigation into you, a gentleman named Jeremy Ornstein. He won't be with the New York City Police Department much longer. You have a lawsuit pending against him personally. He, in the investigation of you, when he sought your cell phone records from Verizon, when he sought the video records from the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C., where you and I stayed on the 5th. By the way, we never left the hotel grounds on the 6th. At first, they denied those requests. Then he reapplied, saying that your investigation was a narcotics investigation, which, of course, it wasn't. Unfortunately, this officer, Mr. Ornstein, has a long record of legal abuses, and I want to talk about that case when we come back on the other side. The other thing we're going to talk about the fact that all of a sudden, Eric Adams he's a major supporter of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy's Department of Government Efficiency, which is pretty laughable. Folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to be right back with our friend Sal Greco. We return to our guest, Sal Greco. He is a 14-plus year veteran of the New York City Police Department, decorated for the most DUI arrests in given years, a man with an unblemished record of service to the people of the city of New York, unfairly terminated from his life's work, and then harassed by the New York City Police Department. When you put a police officer under surveillance, you can't be so stupid that they don't know that. Sal, your situation was particularly outrageous. Your father passed during the time that you were under investigation. You had depleted all your personal funds, paying for your legal defense. You could barely get the money to bury your own father, and they tailed you when you went to his memorial service. This is outrageous. And Jeremy Ornstein, if you're out there, justice will find you, my friend. You cannot abuse people like this. Sal?
Yeah, so what happened there with Jeremy Ornstein is he's got a history of this. There was a prior case with, I believe, two sergeants. They called the Nieves brothers, and he was investigating them, saying that they were having a party and they were hiring, female escorts. So he translated. By the way, he got an illegal warrant for that too. I mean, this guy that's all the guy does. He does administrative subpoenas for warrants that would be something you would do in a criminal case, not a internal investigation in the New York City Police Department. So he transcribed, he got illegal wiretaps. He was listening in on wiretaps on the phone. And what he transcribed as them speaking in Spanish about having female escorts come to a party was actually regular dancers being hired for one of the brothers' birthday party. He got caught perjuring himself and the case was dismissed. It was a criminal case. They had to reinstate this officer as well. It was a major case at that time. That was Jeremy Ornstein, who then got my case. What did he do in my case? Well, he used administrative subpoenas to not only get those phone records, as Roger stated, but to get the camera footage from the Willard Hotel that all it showed is me and Roger sitting in the lobby with other people. There's nothing illegal going on. But in order to get this surveillance footage, you have to actually, it goes against the Internal Affairs' own memos, meaning their own guidelines and rules, to try to get a subpoena out of state. They're not supposed to do this. He did it in an administrative fashion. He used an administrative subpoena for this record. In the end, everything they did proved that not only Roger Stone did nothing wrong, but Sal Greco did nothing wrong. There was no criminality here. And the only thing that this guy was harping on, as Roger saw at my own internal trial, was I was friends with Roger Stone and I'm a supporter of President Trump. It's funny that now, all these years later, it's the boss of Jeremy Ornstein, Eric Adams, who is begging and pleading like a dog for a pardon. And he's the guy that said, we don't like President Trump, because that's what he fired me for. It's very ironic how this story has twisted. And yes, Roger, they did tell me when my father passed away. As he was passing away, I was tailed by one of the Jeremy Ornstein's compadres all the way to the hospital as my father lay there. And as he was dying, right outside the window, there was his compadre taking video. And we do have that footage of the video. I have it in my own discovery. So very disgusting tactics used by Jeremy Ornstein, who will be questioned in this. His depositions will be coming shortly.
Now, Sal, you filed a serious lawsuit, federal lawsuit, because your rights have been violated here. But how long ago was that? I mean, the city has been stalling again and again and again. What you told me last week is what they turned over in discovery is woefully inadequate, unless you believe that nobody in the police department ever discussed this with anyone else in the police department, and that Eric Adams' office was completely unaware and uninvolved in your firing. No one believes that. Tell us about the status of the case.
So we were set to do depositions about, I'd say, a week and a half ago, and conveniently, Corporation Counsel's attorney representing the city got sick a few hours before the former police commissioner's deposition was about to take place. Then, in another strange twist of fate, he decides to, the Corporation Counsel lawyer calls my lawyer and says, oh, let's set a date because, my deposition would have been this week. But what happens now is, conveniently, my attorney gets called for jury duty. So I wonder how that happened. So now everything is on hold because with jury duty in the middle, as you know, you have to complete that because you can't push it off because he had already pushed it off prior. And it's funny how they said they were going to at least try in 6 months. They did it in 5 months. And they did it conveniently when the depositions were about to take place with the police commissioner, Jeremy Ornstein, all these other people. So is it a strange coincidence, or is it once again the same nefarious characters in the background meddling in this case?
Well, justice delayed is justice denied. This lawsuit has now been pending for 3 years, yet the city has stalled on handing over materials and discovery, which they're required to do by law. And then, of course, their lawyer suddenly gets sick just before what will be extraordinarily embarrassing depositions. They're stalling. I think we all recognize that. Sal, another aspect of this is very disturbing. As you know, the New York State Democrat cabal changed the law regarding claims of sexual assault in order to allow this woman, E. Jean Carroll, to file a suit against President Donald Trump, in which she very improbably claims that Trump, a private citizen at the time, assaulted her in a dressing room in Bergdorf Goodman's, which is, I think, no longer there, but was once a very upscale department store. This was in the women's department. It's amazing that there's an episode of Law and Order that tells this exact story prior to her making this claim. She also pointed out the exact dress that she was wearing at the time she said Trump assaulted her. There's only one problem. When you check with the manufacturer of this designer dress, it hadn't even been created at the time that she said Trump assaulted her. Well, when Trump denied that he assaulted her, she sued him again for defamation. She did win a judgment. Of course she did. It's Manhattan, where no Republican, certainly one named Trump, can get a fair trial. But when they changed the law to extend the period under which someone could make these sexual assault claims, little did they know that women would come forward and say that former Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually assaulted them, and Mayor Eric Adams. I think he has 2 suits where women have come forward claiming they were sexually assaulted. But he has to pay for those personally, doesn't he, Sal? I mean, do the taxpayers of New York, are they required to pay for his legal defense in these sexual assault cases?
No, because under General Municipal Law 50K2, unless it has to fall under the scope of your duties as a police officer, as a city employee, and nowhere in that manual does it say that harassing somebody, sexual misconduct in general, which falls under harassment, rape, sexual harassment, all of that is not covered by anybody in the scope of their employment. So how is this beneficial to the taxpayers that they've been getting charged, what, $2,000 an hour by Alex Spiro, who is Eric's attorney, who then conveniently backed out of this case, may I add, after months of being on it and browbeating the victim. His case, by the way, one of the cases, the woman that said that she was sexually assaulted by Eric Adams in a vehicle, is a former police aide that they clearly know each other from back in the early 90s, late 80s. She actually worked in an area I used to work in, Coney Island. She was a police aide, and this scarred her for her life. So they went around and browbeated this woman. Meanwhile, she knows Eric very well. In fact, they were part of the same organization together, the Transit Guardians. That's why she sued the New York City Police Department and the Transit Guardians. And they were browbeating her for her deposition because she can't remember the exact date that this happened 30 years ago, and they were trying to get you in a gotcha moment. So Eric, his lawyers are playing a dirty game, which, by the way, the taxpayers are paying for. He's also in another lawsuit. It's a woman by the name of Dana Ratchlin. She was smeared by the New York City Police Department, and Eric is involved in that. So is his chief of patrol, John Chell, Deputy Commissioner of Operations, Kaz Daughtry, and the chief of department, Jeffrey Madry, who have had numerous sexual misconduct lawsuits already. So the city, though, is illegally funding this. There's another notch in Eric Adams' belt of misconduct, we'll say.
The swirling corruption around the Adams administration extends far beyond the mayor himself. I read a story at the New York Post. The mayor's former police commissioner's brother was running an extortion racket, essentially going around to nightclubs and restaurants saying that if you don't want problems with code enforcement or the NYPD, you're going to have to pay me. Now you also have the case of the sheriff. The sheriff was conducting raids on these illegal pot shops. He was collecting large sums of cash, but that cash seems to have disappeared. Then there's the chancellor of the school board under Eric Adams. Evidently, he was taking money from the Chinese Communist Party. No, Eric Adams is doing a bang-up job. What am I missing here, Sal? This list just goes on and on and on.
Yeah. It's funny how all these people you're talking about are also tied into we call it the Ravenite Club of the operation, which was Con Sofrito in the Bronx, which was owned by his former police commissioner's brother, Richard Caban, but on paper, because it was managed by a mob associate and self-admitted criminal, Jimmy Rodriguez. Jimmy Rodriguez once owned Jimmy's Bronx Cafe, which, of all people, we had people like Sean Puff Daddy Combs and Jennifer Lopez show up numerous times to numerous places Jimmy Rodriguez owned. And also when Hillary Clinton, who he's pictured with, along with her husband, Bill Clinton, when he was president, Jimmy Rodriguez, when Hillary Clinton ran for the Senate in New York State, she announced it in front of Jimmy's laundromat, which happened to be under investigation, and his partner was actually arrested by the feds. And that happens a lot. Jimmy's Bronx Cafe had numerous arrests. So here's a guy that the police department shouldn't even be, within 100 feet unless they're investigating him. But they were all encapsulated. They were just, having a grand old time over there at Con Sofrito. And Jimmy is friends with everyone you mentioned, the sheriff, Anthony Miranda, Eddie Caban, the former police commissioner, obviously the brother that was extorting people, James Caban, the other brother, Richard Caban, Eric Adams himself, who is pictured there numerous times. In fact, just last week, Roger, Jimmy Rodriguez posted pictures again as if he's hanging out with everybody. The school chancellor, David Banks, the deputy mayor, at the time, he was the deputy mayor of public safety, Philip Banks, who's also being investigated. So all these people happen to hang out in one place with the same guy who has ties to virtually everything, from the underworld to politicians. It's just, this is the world of Eric Adams. Yet, I guess we're supposed to give him a pardon. He's now a great guy. He's, quote, woke, quote, cancel culture. That's the term they use. I don't know if it's a low information tagline, wherever that is, but that makes him MAGA, so we have to pardon him, I guess.
Now, let me get this straight. Ed Caban, the police commissioner, now former police commissioner, was pictured with Jimmy Rodriguez, a man who in the past has most definitely been involved in criminal activity and quite reasonably can be considered to have do so again. Wouldn't that violate the exact same regulation under which you were terminated?
100%, Roger. In fact, his place, which is Con Sofrito, had a report to the New York City Police Department, which I published. It's been up there for months, of human trafficking. Then it was all of a sudden the investigation vanished, along with the State Liquor Authority investigation into what they called availing, which is when you front somebody else to be the person on paper as the owner because you yourself can't have a liquor license, which would be something that Jimmy would be in because every place he has, he's never the liquor license holder, but yet everybody says that's Jimmy's place. Clearly, he is someone who's been, involved in criminal activity. He even admitted it in the New Yorker. And I actually dive into this on my own show in one of the latest episodes. So they should not be hanging around Jimmy Rodriguez. In fact, Jeremy Ornstein will be asked, his chief, the internal affairs chief, Miguel Iglesias, he was at Con Sofrito. And how do we know? We have him standing there with city councilman Rafael Salamanca, another character that should be investigated for the public matching fund scandals that's going on there in New York City. He's pictured at Con Sofrito. What's the chief of internal affairs doing there? Shouldn't they know the place is under investigation, has all this mischievous activity there? Very odd how the New York City Police Department treats things. And by the way, Roger, they actually altered that procedure after everything that I've been through. So the criminal association now, which is even more arbitrary, is now stating that, well, maybe this person, even though they've got associated or they've been a criminal in the past, they could be rehabilitated. But then that argument would fall because obviously, Roger, you were pardoned. So again, it's all arbitrary. Again, we don't know who makes up these rules because they treat it very differently depending on who it is that they're targeting.
Sal, I must say this, my prediction for you, the next big New York Democrat in the hot seat is Attorney General Letitia James. There's a team right now meticulously going through all of her contributions that came in through Act Blue for her city council race and her race for Attorney General. The level of fraud is around 70%, meaning the donors who she claims gave to her did not give to her. Some cases, they don't even exist. In other places, we have sworn affidavits from them saying, no, they never sent multiple contributions to Letitia James. It's interesting how Attorney General James' net worth went from almost nothing to over $15 million. She's the owner of a large amount of real estate, but even more troubling, there are multiple complaints of her covering up sexual assault in her own office. A woman has come forward to say that Letitia James herself was sexually assaulted this woman. There are 3 other women who say that the chief of staff for Letitia James assaulted them. One of them has filed a very substantive lawsuit, but Letitia James seeks to keep all of these complaints sealed. In other words, complaints about her own personal misconduct, she argues in court, should be sealed. I don't think this is going to work. In all honesty, she's among the most corrupt attorney generals in the United States. She has left a trail, and everything I just said can be and will be documented. But I raise this because, Sal, she was a regular at Consafrito. She was there when they were doing the straw donors. So, Letitia, I don't think you're going to have a great Christmas, in all honesty.
That's right, Raj. He actually... See, what I would suggest on top of this is that she should have a bar complaint filed, because if she's hanging around all these, we call them unsavory characters, criminals like Fat Joe and Peter Guns and Puff Daddy and whoever else showed up at Consafrito, Jimmy himself, who she's also pictured with outside of Consafrito, so they know each other very well, then how could she be attorney general or have the right to prosecute somebody if she's hanging out with the very people that she convicts? So I guess certain convicted criminals are okay and others aren't, because that's what she's trying to say. Because basically all the crime is, Roger, is something that nobody can see. So basically, as a prosecutor, she has the right to either go ahead with a case or, make it go by the wayside. So how many times has she done that for her friends? And what was going on at Consafrito? Because you're right, Roger. A lot of allegations of these fundraisers, which there's no records of, but yet you can still see the advertisements of all the politicians that were advertising their fundraisers there, Roger. In fact, the Bronx Democrat Party, $400,000 that they know of went missing, and they had to change their books and alter their books again because they got caught. And they were there at least 4 times that I could count of, and only one was written down, and it's not even written down as a party. So a lot going on there, Roger, a lot going on. Letitia James should answer for it.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very interesting, and we look forward to seeing those matters adjudicated. All right, Sal, you do a great show, the Sal Greco Show. Tell folks where they can see it.
Yeah, so if you go on Rumble or on YouTube, you could type in the Sal Greco Show. Also, if you, if a major podcast streaming platform, same thing. And if you can follow the show, subscribe to it, share it out with people. I try to put out a lot of information, kind of like what you hear here. And, it's basically like I'm still a police officer looking into things and giving my perspective, or maybe uncovering, certain crimes that may have occurred. And I do give my opinion here and there. Yes, I am a Trump supporter, so I do touch up on politics. Also, highlight, stuff like that, sports. So it's just a little bit of everything. So if you check it out, the Sal Greco Show on YouTube, Rumble, and every major podcast streaming platform.
All right. I want to thank my good friend Sal Greco for joining us today and illuminating us about the epic criminality of Eric Adams and his chameleon-like change to become a Trump-supporting conservative Republican overnight. Nobody's buying this, Eric. By the way, you are extremely well-dressed, but saw you the other day wearing a scarf that I believe goes for $6,000. I'm kind of curious how you could afford, a designer scarf that costs $6K on the salary of the mayor of New York City. All right, Sal, thanks for joining us today on the show.
Thank you. God bless, Roger. Well, folks, it was my honor to be on the Stone Zone with Roger Stone and bring facts to the table. And, while we discussed a lot about Eric Adams there, a lot was discussed about Eric Adams, let me show you this post by Sam Antar. Look at what Sam Antar is posting. Do you see that? Kathy Hochul is having dinner with Al Sharpton. And that is why Eric Adams will never be removed from office from the governor. Right there. That picture is worth 1,000 words. I don't need to even say anything else. I think the audience gets it. I'm going to leave the show on this note. To my fellow conservatives and or MAGA Republicans, if you're going to embrace someone who all of a sudden now is sounding like they are, quote, woke, end quote, or is stating that they will be, quote, canceled, end quote, and has now entered the, quote, cancel culture, end quote. These are big buzzwords in the Republican circles. No different than in the liberal circles when a liberal embraces someone who says, quote, vote for me, we're the same skin color. Vote for me, we shop at the same store, etc., etc., etc. Bottom line here is you need to do your homework. That in itself, following those buzzwords, is low information. And you don't want to be that because that's what's dragging down this country. These snake oil salesmen that masquerade as politicians play down and play up to these low information voters. And that's what you are if you hang your hat on buzzwords. But if you do your homework, you will see that there's not only crumbs, like Tim Pearson likes to say, but there are full course meals on the checkered past of one Eric Adams, along with his cronies, that'll prove that the only thing Eric Adams is a charlatan who is now shedding his snakeskin, getting ready for the next phase in his political career, which should be dead after his latest indictment. So, folks, if you like what you saw, like what you heard, please, if you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button on Rumble, hit the Rumble button, hit the follow button. And if you're listening on any major podcast streaming platforms, please like and subscribe. With that being said, I hope everybody will have a fun, safe, and happy weekend coming up. Remember, it is the stretch run to Christmas and a New Year. So with that being said, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.